small mistake. I was a rebellious and stubborn kid. Adults often called me a bad seed. I did terribly in school, got into fights all the time, and caused trouble everywhere. I secretly smoked, and by the time I was 17, I was completely out of control. I stole from stores, broke into places, and picked locks. The police had arrested me many times for different crimes. I never seriously hurt anyone, but I caused my parents a lot of pain and disappointment. One day, after a big fight with my family, my father kicked me out of the house. I was so angry that I left and swore never to return. At first, I stayed at a friend's house, but I soon felt uncomfortable and didn't want to bother them anymore. I had nowhere to go, and my pride wouldn't let me go home and apologize. Since it was summer, I decided to sleep in the park for a few nights. But when I arrived, I saw that the park was full of homeless people. The thought of living like this made me realize how serious my situation was. It was late at night, almost morning. I found an empty spot and lay down. A homeless man walked up to me. His voice was rough and tired. "Kid, what are you doing here at this time of night?" I answered without thinking, "I have no home to go back to." He smirked. "Liar. You had a fight with your family and ran away, didn't you? This place isn't for you. Go home." I couldn't deny it. He was completely right. I didn't know what to say. Seeing that I didn't move, he sighed. "Kid, even if you don't want to go home, you must have other family or friends, right? Why not go to them? Trust me, you don't belong here. You won't survive." But I was too stubborn to listen. I stayed for 3 nights. Every night, that homeless man came and tried to convince me to leave. Looking back, I realized he was only trying to help. On the 4th day, I was so bored and, more importantly, so hungry that I decided to talk to some of the homeless people. I hoped that if I became friends with them, they might share some food with me. But after a while, I realized no one had extra food. Then, I noticed a man with a scary face. Before I could say much, he glared at me and told me to get lost. That was when I saw a chocolate bar sticking out of his pocket. My stomach was growling. Without thinking, I used my stealing skills and quietly took the chocolate from his pocket. But instead of feeling proud, I felt ashamed. Stealing food from a homeless man, that was too low. I could have swallowed my pride, gone home, and apologized. Everything would have ended quickly, but I didn't. Instead, I hid in a corner and ate the chocolate like a starving animal. Then I calmly returned to the group, acting like nothing happened. A few hours later, the man came back. My whole body tensed. I thought he wouldn't notice his missing chocolate. But I was wrong. He reached into his pocket and realized it was gone. I held my breath, pretending I knew nothing. He stood still for a moment, frowning. Then, instead of getting angry, he just shrugged like it didn't matter. He grabbed his bottle of alcohol and drank deeply. He drank until the whole bottle was empty, as if trying to calm himself. Then, suddenly, he smashed the bottle on another man's head. The sound of breaking glass mixed with a painful scream. But he wasn't done. He kicked the man on the ground again and again. "You bastard, you stole from me, didn't you? You want to die?" Everyone around just watched in silence. No one dared to stop him. Only the old man, the one who had told me to go home, spoke up. "Enough, let him go." But the angry man ignored him. I sat next to the old man and whispered, "What's happening?" The old man sighed. "That guy getting beaten, he's known as a thief. So whenever something goes missing, people blame him. That's why no one is helping." I froze, watching the beating continue. My mind went blank, my body stiff with fear. I knew that if I spoke up, I would be the next one on the ground, maybe worse. I turned to the old man and asked, "But what if he didn't steal anything this time?" The old man looked at me and whispered, "Kid, listen to me, say nothing. Get out of here, now, and never come back." This time I listened. I turned and walked away, leaving behind the screams of pain. I never found out what happened to that man. But I knew one thing, he wouldn't survive. At around 2 in the morning, I returned home feeling dirty and ashamed. I stood at the door, facing my parents' disappointed eyes, and told them everything. I never imagined that one small mistake could cause such a terrible thing. I was filled with guilt and fear, forced to see the cruel reality of life. From that day on, I never disobeyed my parents again. I focused on my studies, tried to be a better person, and never stole again.